In the studio by activist and fashion designer Mayada Adil of ASUAD. ASUAD, which stands for?
Activists Sudanese United Against Dictatorship.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we're also joined by our Chief International Affairs Editor, Robert Parsons. So, delegations back from Addis Ababa, and it was hailed as the breakthrough, but they haven't confirmed yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is always going to take a little bit of time. You know, there are lots of lawyers involved in it from the African Union and elsewhere, trying to hammer this together, make sure it sticks, making sure there are no easy ways out of it. So I wouldn't read too much into it not being signed off on yet, although it will add to tensions. It will create concern that perhaps the military is trying to wriggle out of its obligations or make last-minute changes which the opposition will find difficult to accept. Certainly, it doesn't help to stabilize the situation in Sudan. It doesn't help to play down the tensions that already exist.
How will the opposition in the end take it? Will there be enough unity for this to be a legitimate transitional council as it is on paper right now?
Well, according to what's happening right now, after the internet blackout went of Sudan.
Yeah, which was lifted 24 hours ago.
Exactly. Actually, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of videos from the massacre from the 3rd of June been touring around the social media, and it's very provocative for the Sudanese people and even the Sudanese people in the diaspora. That makes the people to think about this power sharing agreement again and reevaluate the situation of, is this a sort of a compromise that been done in the name of the people that been killed and people that were raped and women that were raped, or not sure. Also, the military now using the tactics of delay. They're trying to delay the power sharing agreement and not to deliver it to civilian because of they need time more to legitimize themselves in the society.
Yeah, let's go over several points. First of all,
yes,
it's 21 months for the military holding the chairmanship, yes, then 21 months for a civilian.
18 months.
18, excuse me.
Yes.
Would you have preferred to see it the other way around?
Of course, everyone went out to the street. They revolt against that. They don't want the 21st month of military to come back. It's like we're facing the same phase of regime, but it's a different facade, different names, Hamati Burhan, but we're the same Inqaz regime. And we wanted the civilian to take the power first to fulfill the demands of the street, but this didn't happen.
You mentioned Hameti. He was leader of the Janjaweed militias. He's the
yes,
head of those RSF militias, which have been blamed for those massacres that you mentioned.
Yes.
Is that for you a non-negotiable, that if those RSF militias continue in their current incarnation, the deal will fail?
Yes, even people in Darfur, they're not willing to forgive Hamiti for what he have done in genocides from 2013. And what happened in Sudan, it was an image of what's happening in Darfur for years.
Yeah.
And
one of the problems, it seems to me, is that Hemeti himself stated after the announcement of this agreement, yes, that it was inclusive, fully inclusive, including, he said, armed groups. Now, yes, I presume that is not acceptable to the vast majority of the civilian protesters who will not accept the military, particularly the RSF in particular, especially after what happened over the last couple of months or so in Sudan. But the other thing that strikes me about this as well is that they've set up an investigative committee to look in a transparent and objective way at the attack on the demonstrators on June the 3rd, in which so many people, as many as 128, were killed.
Yes.
Many others more badly injured, women raped, and so on and so
yes,
forth. How is it possible that the RSF and Hemeti will allow an objective, transparent, fair investigation into crimes that they themselves committed?
That's something we're sure it's not going to happen because Hamiti in power. But that's why there we have the civilian, Force of Freedom and Change, sharing this power with them to fulfill the demand that we need to investigate of what happened in the massacre. Also before the massacre and to ensure the peace file within the 6 months. But now with this delay tactics, we're not sure that it's going to happen. Well, this deal was Hamiti, yeah.
The head of the African affairs at the U.S. State Department has thrown his backing behind the deal in the last 24 hours in the name of stability. Do you agree with him?
I'm not sure I get your question right.
Is he right in saying, let's back this deal and it's not perfect, but let's back it in the name of stability?
Well, yeah, at least to stop the killing in the street of Sudan. We agree on that, but we're sure that's not fulfilling the demands of the whole Sudanese voices in the street. Yeah.
Well, the Freedom and Change Alliance is, broadly speaking, backing it. It's not the best deal in the world. I think everybody accepts that. But, given the circumstances, given the power that the military wield in Sudan at the moment, it's a compromise. And
it's a compromise.
It's a first step.
We call it a compromise
it's a first
more
step,
than a deal.
Yeah?
Yes.
And do you think enough of the opposition will agree to that compromise?
Well, there's some voices right now saying we're not, and there's the Sudanese syndicates. They start to work organizedly within the neighborhood to organize themselves, to come as a group, and maybe they will revolt against what's happening of this agreement.
Yeah. Mayada Adil, it was last December when the protests first began that eventually led to the ouster of longtime strongman Omar al-Bashir. You'd been in Khartoum a month previous. Did you feel something coming?
Because of the rises of the prices of everything of the life, people start to be depressed, and you kind of felt it. You felt it's happening, but we didn't know how it's going to happen, where we're going to start. We were kind of sure that's not going to happen in Khartoum, and that's why it started from Adbara, and it started from women starting to yelling in the street, and but we never knew that will take for 6 months to take down al-Bashir regime. And as soon as we were so happy with the victory, then we were facing the same regime again, and ups and downs, it's affected the psychology of the Sudanese people as a whole.
Can I just ask one more question about it? How important do you think it is going to be going forward that there are apparently quite serious splits within the military itself?
I'm not sure getting your question, sorry.
Going forward,
yes.
Given the problems of negotiating with the military, the limitations on acceptability of this deal,
yes,
is there perhaps hope in the fact that the military itself, the security forces, are themselves, to a large degree, divided against each other?
Yes, that's what we had noticed. They're divided because the small officers in the military are with the Sudanese people in the street, but with the high ranks, they're afraid of their positions. That's why against the civilian government, they're afraid to be punished. They're afraid to lose their powers, the money that they had because of the corruption of the government. We have seen this dividing for the recent year, but become more obvious with the revolution. But they're paying people, for more.
Just going to ask you one final question, Mayada Adil. Some say, well, it's a young population. They haven't had civilian rule since the 1980s.
Yes.
The Sudanese are not ready for it. What do you say to that?
That's not true, because the set-in was like the perfect example of how Sudan can live peacefully, how Sudan can live churching and respecting the rights of others, and how we all want to be united, not being divided by the racism and tribalism and all of that. And that all started by the young people, by the children, by the women themselves. And I think we're ready for it. But the older generation not ready for our change and our souls for revolution.
All right, Mayada Adil, I want to thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
so
us.